Dear games industry, please let things end. Video game sequels are really peculiar compared to other forms of media. Unlike movies or TV shows, the core concept of a game can be infinitely improved upon thanks to the nature of the medium. In the same way some people will play a sport all their life and never get tired of it, others will play the new COD every year and still get excited over the same kill streak they've gotten a million times before. And that's fine for the most part if you just want to turn your brain off and relax with what you know. I won't judge you. Hell, I've put over 1,000 hours into Team Fortress 2 over the past 10 years, and I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. What I do have a problem with is when single player games, or ones with a bigger focus on story, try to have their cake and eat it. As storytelling in mainstream video games starts to mature, they also need to realise that sometimes a sequel or reboot can actually hinder the impact of the original game. Also note how I said mainstream video games, because I believe deep and interesting narratives have existed in more niche titles since the 90s. It's only in the last decade or so that we're seeing multi-million franchises spawn from these. The last time I experienced the disappointment of an unnecessary sequel or remake was Catherine Fullbody, a game I had high hopes for after playing the original, but within the first 10 minutes realised how much of a mistake buying it was. I already went on a whole 3-minute rant on this game in my Catherine video, but long story short, I hate anime. I fucking hate anime so much. Oh my god. The one series I can think of that encapsulates the whole of what I'm talking about here is Assassin's Creed. Like, you have a few decent games with a story that, I mean, sure, it's kinda dumb, but not completely awful. Then bam 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 bam, until the whole integrity of the series and Ubisoft as a game developer is tanked into the ground. It's slowed down in the past few years with the new dead horse being Far Cry, but Ubisoft is little more than a bad punchline among my friends now, because they've shown how willing they are to just pump out games like a factory. It's not just the story in these games that gets stale either. Every Ubisoft game has you climbing up towers that have map icons that give you the same shitty like 4 or 5 missions each time, and it's just like, oh my god, how do people actually play this shit every year? I'm playing the sequel to Katamari Damacy at the moment, and they honestly give so little of a shit about it being a sequel. It's so clear, it's just, hey, you wanted more? Sure, but we're gonna take the piss. I mean, it's great, and I never knew true love until I met the king of all cosmos. But I wouldn't say it has the same charm or energy as the first game. Maybe because it was original and a fresh concept in my mind when I played it, or they were knowingly just phoning it in. And I mean, it's clear the creator isn't one to dwell on a singular idea if you've played his other games. Even legendary icons like Mario aren't immune to stagnation either. While most Mario games are able to come up with fresh new ideas that give the games a lot of their own identity, the new Super Mario Bros. Series shows how easy it is to fall into the trap of creating sequels to the point of redundancy. And if I had to decide between a new Mario never coming out ever, or the franchise staying with the new format for eternity, I would honestly choose the former. The thing is, they make a lot of money. A Mario game is always going to sell over 1 million units, no matter how original it is. And that's just a symptom of the media landscape as a whole at the moment, not just video games. I'm not saying new and original ideas never get greenlit, far from it, but I've seen a lot of film directors express their troubles getting more out there concepts funded in favour of big franchises like Marvel movies. And unlike films, it's a lot harder to then use that money from those big blockbuster titles to fund a more personal, artistic game with the same level of production as the big boys. It can happen, it's just less likely with the way the industry works. The problem of crappy reboots is only enabled further by the absolute disregard for game preservation we have at the moment. I think a lot of people wouldn't have a problem with wanting infinite sequels or reboots if all classic games were just available to play easily. For example, if you want to play Just Cause 2 and don't have a PC that can handle it, you have to dust up an old PS3 or Xbox and track down a copy just to experience it. Or you could play Just Cause 3 or 4, which are way easier to access and are more or less the same game but with better graphics, yet are received worse for a myriad of reasons. If 2 was just easier to access, there would be no need for those sequels. Though at the same time, necessity, profitability and innovation have always been at arms with each other. Reboots in general fall into this argument too. Why would an original hack and slash game be funded when you can slap the Castlevania name on it and probably get an extra 100,000 sales from it? Despite a Castlevania reboot without anything that made the original classics good would be like having an iCarly reboot without Gibby or Sam. Oh wait, I forgot we live in hell. I'm not even gonna entirely blame the companies behind this either, even though they are the main source of all this, because consumers have shown how much they crave unnecessary sequels. While doing research for my misleading marketing video, I found footage of someone who hadn't even finished Hotline Miami 2, asking the developers about a possible Hotline Miami 3. He hadn't even beaten the game he was playing before craving more.
Don't ask questions, just consume product and then get excited for next product.
And the same thing happened when I was refreshing myself on Danganronpa V3, where people were commiserating how V3 ended the series for good in a very you can't follow this up kind of way. And I get it, it's hard to let something you love go, but the video game industry has coddled consumers into believing things never have to end, that all your favourite series and characters will be around forever. This is something V3 comments on, by the way, yet fans still want a Danganronpa 4, and by the looks of it, they'll get their wish. Look, I know this is like the third video in a row I've mentioned this series, but I swear I don't like it that much. They're like 7 to 8 out of 10s at best. It's just a coincidence they correlate to the topics I've covered recently. The worst case of fans wanting sequels that don't need to be made is Metal Gear Solid 4, a game that was never supposed to exist. Then after Kojima said he was done with the series and that he was handing off 4 to a different team, he got death threats from fans. This game is a case study on how making an unnecessary sequel can negatively impact both the overarching narrative and the reputation of a series as a whole. The first 3 MGS games were all landmark titles in the industry, graphically, narratively, and mechanically. If it had stopped there, this story would have finished as a trilogy that never went below an 8 out of 10, and could be praised as the perfect series in video games. The last game in the story timeline, 2, didn't leave on a cliffhanger per se, but was certainly left open-ended. The thing is, the questions raised in MGS2 were never meant to be answered. In fact, it seems like the opposite. They were made to be unanswerable, serving more as a metaphor for the transition into the digital age and information overflow. So when it was time to reveal who the Patriots were in 4, they had to make some great lovable characters from Snake Eater into complete villains. This, along with a bunch of other convoluted plot points from 4 trying to make sense of what happened, completely tanked its reputation from a respectable series with a slightly complicated story to the stupid meme games with convolution tattooed on its forehead we all know them as today. It's a shame, but something I see a lot of games with overarching plots fall into nowadays. In terms of narrative structure, video games have always had a lot more in common with television than film or books, and it seems like we've inherited a core symptom of that medium, that being not knowing when to stop. Of course, there will always be classics that can be retold countless times, but when you get to season 7 of The Office and you're still seeing the same shit you saw in the first, what are you gaining from this? It's easy to keep consuming what you know. Hell, I'm guilty of it constantly, but variety is the spice of life, and in the coming years, I hope we can move past series that don't need 6 more installments, and onto better, more interesting experiences as a whole. All of this to say, everything I don't like should end, and everything I do can keep going. Okay, thanks, bye. Hey, thanks for watching. This video was kind of made on a whim. I'm quite drunk right now, so I don't know how much of this is actually going to get past the final cut. But yeah, this has just been on my mind for a bit. Check out my other videos, subscribe. I'm going to go lie down for a bit. Bye.